In autumn of 1948, Sayyid Qutb, an Islamic Egyptian writer, departed Cairo's international airport on an airliner bound for the United States. There, he would stay for 2 years studying and examining Western culture, but by the time he was headed home, he was ready to wage war. 50 years later, those same ideals would cause nearly 3,000 people's deaths in Manhattan and start America's longest war. Sayyid had always been a strict Islamist. In Egypt, he wrote many books on the role of Islam in Middle Eastern politics. His views were seen as so radical, in fact, that the Egyptian Ministry of Education would send him to the United States to give him exposure to a more liberal and secular world. What ended up happening, though, would be the opposite of what the ministry wanted. He would become increasingly radical during his time in the US, seeing the greed and selfishness everywhere he went. During his stay, another key event would happen that would change his views. The Muslim Brotherhood was a Sunni Islamist organization and stemming from a religious movement advocating Islamic reform. Sayyid had been an admirer of Hassan al-Banna, the leader of the group. In 1949, he was assassinated by the Egyptian secret police, worried that he was gaining too much power. Deeply saddened by the assassination, his views were radicalized further. After his return from the US in 1950, he immediately joined the Muslim Brotherhood. There, he would pick up the role as a key figure, writing his accounts on the Western world and the need for Islamic salvation, providing a theoretical framework for a potential armed resistance movement. Throughout the next decades, the Muslim Brotherhood would focus on its mission to create a strong Islamic society, building hospitals, schools, mosques, and welfare programs where the governments could not. Through these actions, they quickly gained support of the general public and cementing themselves in politics. However, along with these ideas of Islamic society came extremists with similar ideas to Qutb's. These people believed that Muslim societies had fallen into a state of Jahiliyyah, meaning age of ignorance, or the period before Islam existed. In Qutb's book, Milestones, he describes the urgency of rejecting secularism and democracy at all costs, even through violence, stating that even Islamic states had abandoned true Islam. In December of 1979, Afghanistan was invaded by the Soviets in support of their new communist government. In an attempt to drive them out, many different groups of Afghan Arabs composed of fighters from 43 different countries came to Afghanistan to drive them out. These groups of Islamic fighters were called the Mujahideen. A coordinator for one of these Mujahideen groups was Osama bin Laden. Osama bin Laden was the son of Mohammed bin Laden, a wealthy contractor for the Saudi royal family. Although he received regular Islamic education all the way through university, he was heavily influenced by Qutb's books and became invested in the fight against Jahiliyyah. Together with Abdullah Azzam, they founded the Afghan Mujahideen, one of the many Mujahideen groups all fighting the Soviets in Afghanistan. Osama bin Laden, Ayman al-Zawahiri, and Abdullah Azzam created the Islamic jihadist group Al-Qaeda in 1988. Their mission was to remove any Western forces from the Middle East, overthrowing governments to impose strict Islamic law, and targeting the United States and its allies. Over the next 2 years, it would focus on recruiting and grow to a couple hundred members. 1 year later, Kuwait was invaded by Iraqi forces. Saudi Arabia, being neighbors to Iraq and Kuwait and having much less military technology, looked for external reinforcements in case of invasion. Osama bin Laden had proposed to the Saudi government that his forces could defend the country, but were ultimately turned down, instead stationing US soldiers along the Saudi-Iraqi border. Members of Al-Qaeda were furious at the fact that Saudi Arabia, an Islamic government, asked for help from the United States instead of them. In 1992, Al-Qaeda would make its first move, bombing multiple hotels in Aden, Yemen, leaving 2 dead and 7 injured. Al-Qaeda would continue its terrorism, including a bombing at the US Embassy in Nairobi, killing 224 and injuring over 5,000. Then, in 2001, the US would be shaken to its core.
It's 8:52 here in New York. I'm Bryant Gumbel. We understand that there has been a plane crash on the southern tip of Manhattan. You're looking at the World Trade Center. We understand that a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center.
We have some breaking news that we want to bring you around, and we're going to go to a picture, a live picture from New York City. Apparently, a plane has crashed into the World Trade Center in New York. 8:52.
Breaking news during the Trade Center. It will not end until every terrorist group of global reach has been found, stopped, and defeated.
On October 7, 2001, the United States invaded Afghanistan, starting the War on Terror, the longest war the United States had ever been in. By 2003, Saddam Hussein was captured and sentenced to death, and in 2001, Osama bin Laden was officially killed by SEAL Team 6. However, the US continued to station their troops in Afghanistan, giving rise to Taliban power and a new terrorist organization called ISIS. In 2021, after more than 20 years, US troops completed their withdrawal from Afghanistan, resulting in full Taliban control and the chaotic evacuation of Kabul airport. Sayyid Qutb's ideas didn't die with him. They helped shape a long and deadly conflict, influencing hundreds of thousands of people. What started as one man's reaction to the West grew into a global fight that changed the world. Although the war is over, the impact of those beliefs still remain today.
So this is goodbye.